Welcome back to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And today, in the last few days, when I had a few moments, I tried to take all my knowledge of the last video's tarot knowledge and kind of crystallize that within myself. Bring it all together, sum it up. And I'm like, you know what? I should probably create my own deck of cards. And so I started sketching out the plan, and I was like, let's take all the extras out of the cards. What simple symbol comes up to me in my mind without a lot of effort or meditation or magic? What what kind of like says it all? What is the most simple shape that says it all for each card? And then after I did that, I noticed within the cards, a lot of the cards have a duality to them, a life and a death element, a feminine masculine principle, a heaven and earth principle, an angel, demon, or devil principle. Uh, there was a lot of yin and yang energy in each card. And then I noticed some of them, and so, and then I noticed some of the ones that didn't have that polarity expressed in each card had one that also didn't exactly have it, wasn't standalone within their card as well. Uh, and I think the best example would be the Empress and the Emperor. Looking at those two cards, they're like polar opposite in gender, polar opposite in color schemes, and and there is a paradox of the two sexes is that they're both at the status of emperor empress. So that's what there was a unity principle going on as well. And so when you start thinking like this, you'll actually be thinking like me and how I play with understanding the systems, the patterns, and not just getting stuck on textbook, this is the way it is, but then creating what I call hidden pathways, your other connections that aren't deliberately shown. Where do I get this thing called hidden pathways? That happens through the teachings of the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life system. The Tree of Life has the 22 pathworks, but within the Golden Dawn manual, uh, in the divination section, they have you create meaningful patterns. And then once you start understanding that, they're helping you learn to read between the lines, and upload or expand the embedded information hidden. And so that's why I call them hidden pathways. And I found that also with astrology, with aspects, you can consider those uh, the the paths and the aspects that you can make can be hidden pathways. So you're creating you're understanding relationships between things, whether you found it in the zodiac well and with the planets and geometry, whether you find it in the tree of life. How do we do that within the tarot? So you can do it by color, you can do it by gender, you can do it by number, you can do it by symbols. I mean, in the end, they're all symbols. Uh, and then by like meaning. And so this is how you start to unpack the information that's embedded within the tarot system. Once you're that familiar, so as I was playing with my cards and everything, all my thoughts were this other language. Kind of like all my thoughts had matching. It was basically, I could take everything and write it out mathematically, but everything I was writing out mathematically were symbol cards. And so then I really understood why Mercury, 3 times great, or being able to. So Mercury has the gift of language and kind of communication, the gift of flight, and in a weird way, the gift of alchemy and magic. Because language is magic. Language is life in a weird way. It's how the will is communicated, and language is thought form. So it kind of serves bridges. And art, you translate one thing, it could be a sensation, into another. It gets re-expressed, and it might be an abstract painting. So ideas, concepts can be transformed into poetry, into language, and transmitted. And so I could really see, once you become fluent in the tarot language, you then can create a communication relay system or a grid, to take in frequencies of other dimensions, higher states of consciousness, but you have a reliable coded system to then translate it back into images, then back into words, to yourself, to apply to your daily life, or to your client. So this really takes out the false use of intuition, trusting on guides, angels, to deliver messages in story format of ages past, of futures possibilities. It takes that out and helps you now use intuition as the glue, as the medium, of in the translation process. You intuit, you incite it, but you have to have enough variables, you have to have enough clues, you have to have enough puzzle pieces, so your intuition gaps aren't huge, and monumental efforts with a lot of unknown things that you have to wait to be revealed. Because you have so many puzzle pieces, it's quick, it's exact, you get a clearer image, and you understand it better, and so you get more information, and so your readings become clearer, what the universe is telling you. So some people may use meditation, guided imagery, like journey experience type guided meditations to have an experience. But the way of the tarot actually isn't like that. But a lot of people will supplement that, called pathworking. But if you truly take on the art of tarot as a language, as a second language, as a first language, then what happens is all that happens automatically. It's like learning to play the piano. So it's hard at first, and you probably imagine yourself playing, and your fingers have to learn to work a certain way, and you have to learn to read the notes, you have to learn timing, which is so important to the piano and to all music. The art of timing, hence measure and spaces, and then you learn the musical scale, and your ear starts you're learning everything about time and space, and so silence and sound, and same with the tarot. And this isn't really being stressed. It's shrouded in delusion. It's shrouded in whatever we don't know, we will now make mystical, magical, witchy. We'll over-decorate it. We'll fill in the blanks with I don't know, I'll call it folk wisdom, good adages, sounds true advice. It'll be a lot of guesswork. And you're doing yourself, you're doing the world, you're doing your clients a disservice. This is my perspective as I would definitely say a hermeticist and an occultist. Uh, you're doing them a disservice, and you're corrupting unknowingly. You're corrupting tarot. You're corrupting the magical art, and you're making it harder on yourself. So if you're like, there is so many people who are corrupting channeling. They're corrupting all the mystical arts. So this was the number one reason why the mystery schools are a mystery to the general public. This is a reason why there is a testing process to be entered into the temple or the school of the mysteries. This is a reason why they take vows of silence and oaths and pacts. Because corruption is natural. Entropy is a natural force. People hear things differently. It goes through their filters. People have their own ideas on reality, what happiness is, what love is, what enlightenment is. We may be sharing all the same words, but in our mind, different images, different symbols, different ideas and idealisms happen. So because we're using the same word, we assume we're having the same conversation with each other. And I can say, do you get it? And you say, yeah, I get it. But what you're getting and what you're hearing is still actually very different than what I am saying and what I am meaning. And so the meaning in a weird, strange way so it's really weird. Language itself is magic. Computer programmers get to this point where they're like, everything I'm writing with my intentions make no sense anymore. Yet the intentions are followed through exactly with like robotics and things and computers and programs. How is this possible? You can come to that same conclusion when you just start looking at writing and reading. How is it that we're all reading the same book, going on a mystical adventure, and some of us say that's a great book, and others say I didn't get that book. And then, so we're all having our own unique experience. It's so weird. Yet we're reading the same letters. We're reading the same book. We're looking at the same painting. And it actually goes beyond the simplicity of subjectivity, objectivity. Even if a lot of it has to do with our own personal development, our perspective, our reality, and the uniqueness of who we are. So I really like that saying currently. You can't cross the same river twice. Like, you evolved. Every single time you cross that river, you've changed so much, you've evolved so much. But guess what? Maybe the river did too. It is not the same river, and you're not the same person. Every time you go to your yoga mat, it's a different body, it's a different you. Every time you do your meditation, it's different. You can't do the same thing twice because of this, like, you're shifting perspectives because you're evolving, you're learning, you're getting what you can out of each experience. So I've had this experience a few times where I was reading a book and then I went back to read that chapter again, and I went, I don't know what I just read, because what I'm reading the same words, but it was like a totally different story. Like, the contrast was so far that I literally was in shock. I was like, it felt like a Harry Potter moment. I was like, the page just rewrote itself and wrote in a whole different chapter. And I swore I read it, but what I read was a completely different story. And so I really actually have fun with this. Uh, and so I might go, so after I deleted my old channel, I go, you know what? I'm just going to start all over again and maybe reteach the same material and do a repeat, but I know it's going to be different because it's a different me and it's a different world and it's a different reality. Some people express that as different timelines and whatever. I think that's just another story. But you get to these points. You know, you cone up that experience and you get to this breaking point, and I call that, like, maybe that's the magical point. It's part of Wizard's madness, when reality breaks down and becomes lucid, that you make these transformations. I can do that to myself just by talking to myself. I can talk to myself in a positive way and cone my energy till reality falls apart. I'm at the edge of reality, my reality. The bubble, this construct I've built for myself, starts to break down. And the ego starts panicking and dying. And sometimes I let it fall apart. And so the edge of madness. So I'm just going to say, so then you can, like, imagine you had like a filing cabinet or a recipe box, and you're going to have like maybe keywords. You could file this type, your thinking, you could file this stuff away, you can organize it like that, and then you use that keyword to sum it all up. All these recipes like that, similar to that, are in this section. I'm just going to say hangman card. Boom. So everything I just said just related to the hangman card, but it also related to the entirety of the tarot. Okay? So there was a lot of information embedded in that. Now we get to something really, so I can deliver one conversation, and depending upon the level of your consciousness was the information you took away. And so some people who can't absorb it will go, that sounded interesting, I'm hungry for more, I'm going to rewatch. Someone else will be like, I didn't get it, I'm out of here. Someone else went, whoa, I totally got that. And it was just enough to bridge the gaps, but they had a little bit of consciousness expansion. So I love it. And so I'm just going to say, when you're in expanded consciousness, you don't have to say anything. But whatever you say, it doesn't matter. It's meaningless. But it did matter because it grabbed your attention to stay dialed in to the frequency of that energy, and you got what you needed through transmission. So it's all good. At whatever level you can receive the knowledge, you can receive it. So I was playing with my cards, drawing my pictures, being done with it, waking up the next morning, looking at my cards, looking at how things relate. I started connecting cards together this way. You know, the Empress and the Emperor, they connect. The Devil card and the Lovers, they connect. and this is a very good example of the opposites. So we have the light, same images as the devil card, just seen in a light perspective, we called it love. So isn't it any wonder that in our culture, the lower expression of love is contract, control, binding agreements, giving your power away, selling out, and doesn't that cause the reaction of anger, hate, and violence? Anger, hate, and violence is still love. But when you flip its polarity, it's all pretty and it's all romantic and it's all high vibes. So we really get to see that they're not really separate. They're one and the same. They're two sides of the same coin. The only way to release yourself from the devil is with love. And the only way to release yourself out of fatuation is to see the darkness in all of this, the weakness. The only way to balance yourself is to put together the yin and the yang, become neutral again, in order to let the light and the dark, the yin and the yang, flow properly in harmony. You have to add that third principle of neutrality or clarity, which is the High Priestess card. Okay. So I didn't expect that I would be channeling frequencies of the tarot, connecting you to the spirit of tarot, the energy, the wisdom of tarot. But we did. And that was happening behind the magical screen. But it was. And I knew it because when I was working on that paper, all my thoughts were symbolized in the language of tarot. After I did that process, I was like, in a story, there's only 3 situations that can happen: man against man, man against nature, and man against himself. And I was like, could all these cards be absorbed into 3 images of these 3 scenarios? And it was like, yes. The Hierophant, which I call the Matrix, the elite, the assumed truth of reality, just all of that, all the systems, all the organizations, all the authoritarian powers that be, that are helping create the illusion of reality, are summed up in the Hierophant. Because the Hierophant assumes the law, assumes the judgment, assumes authority over earth, assumes authority over man, assumes authority of good and evil, right and wrong, and what we will go to war against or create peace with. And it also disassociates itself from its own shadow, the devil. Man is the devil. You know, when man separates himself, compartmentalizes, disassociates, it creates a shadow. And it creates its own problems. So as long as man tries to dominate the earth, dominate each other, and overrule, upspur the natural order of things in heaven and in earth, it's always creating trouble on a collective level for everyone. So the Hierophant is assuming a lot of power. The other card that really sums up the tarot in the more mystical occult tradition, alchemical way, is the Hermit. The Hermit is doing the inner magic, balancing psychological forces, And all that is going through a transmutation. So it assumes the wizard. You can't really be a good hermit unless you're also a wizard. And then we get the balancing of forces, literally. The true alchemical process has to work with your higher self as well, but temperance is the alchemy aspect of magic. Going through those transmutations, you have to kill your ego and be confronted with your limitations. You have to die and be reborn, and you have to face your karma. So the suffering, and once again, the rebirth, the reawakening, and you mimic or work with nature in the great cosmic order of life, death, and rebirth. And you combine your opposites, you get in touch with your feminine and your masculine, you transcend it, and become the angel of alchemy. But none of it works without your intuition. Being clear, being neutral, resolving oppositions, and understanding. And we're coming close to the end of this video. And the other card that really sums it up is the Fool card. Taking risks, living on the edge and a razor's edge, being innocent and naive, yet still full of life, being neutral, obviously connected to your higher self because you really haven't been contaminated. You haven't been cut off. I don't know why I actually put the Moon card in there. That was an accident, but must be so. We'll figure it out later. And then the Fool still has to wrestle with their primal nature and their angelic nature. So that's probably why I put the Moon card there. And the Lover's card. The Fool is love, passionate, romantic, idealized, artist, the dreamer. And so the Fool card is definitely in there. I think I'm going to kick out the Moon card. It doesn't belong. We'll put the Moon card in with the Hermit card. With the subconscious clearing out the clutter, seeing deeper into their own self. Okay. So it really got summed up into those 3 cards. You know, and they could all be absorbed into one card, which I would then... But see that little exercise of just which cards absorb the other cards? That was a very powerful revelation into the cards. Because earlier I was thinking the Temperance card should be the main card at one point. And then I always go back to the Fool card. But then I'm like, that whole occult hermetic wisdom is always the Hermit, a very underrated, misunderstood card. And so today, if we're going to absorb them all, it will all go back to 0. It will all go back to the beginning and the end. And I'll put it back as the Fool card, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. So I hope you liked that. I hope you... So in closing, because I think I have like 3 minutes left on my phone, draw your own cards. Simplify the images that mean something to you. And it might help you see clearer the cards. Match them up in different combinations. So on my paper, I just did pairings. My next combo is going to be triads. What 3 cards go together? And I play this game with myself all the time. The next thing I want to do is with the lower cards. So I threw out the astrology. I threw out the Kabbalah. I put them back into just their cards. And now I'm going to extract more meaning cuz I'm like, you know what? The 3 of hearts, or sorry, the 3 of swords is showing up as an alchemy process, and it really matches well with temperance. And I'm like, and the 9 of swords, uh we see it as grief, but I really match it up with breakthrough and the Tower card. So once you've learned all these systems, very orthodox, standard systems, you have to transcend it. It's like, who in the world is going to go, yes, I got the 9 of swords? And I'm like, don't you see the breakthrough? And the martyr and the victim is dying in grief. That's what is going on. You have to grieve to kill the martyr and victim that is holding you stuck in life, that is making you afraid of nature. So you're getting stuck with this negative baggage. And so 9 of swords isn't fear and nightmares and anxiety, but it's actually relief. It could be the last step in your grieving process. The 3 of swords, oh, so painful. Yeah, because you're killing the devil. You're slaying the devil with the swords, and you're becoming the angel. You're moving into true love, which is a connection with your higher self. So, do you see how psychologically I'm creating mathematical formulas to evolve myself? This is how you make your tarot transformational. So I think the powerful words get put out there. There's one YouTuber who uses transformation in her lecture, in her talking about her favorite sign and her sign. And I'm like, where's the transformation? You're just judgmental, creepy, asking for money. And I'm like, there's no real transformation. If there's a transformation, you're making people worse because there's no bridging together of thought ideas into, it's not expanding consciousness. It's not bringing more awareness. It's just more content. So the readings need to be transformational and enlightening, not enslaving into a prediction. Those predictions should help someone expand their mind, increase their